of being the kind of people to Hashem. Given Tafshim and Tess, press 1. For a shir Yanka Bels Megura Yaviv, and the Medrash tells us that Megura Yaviv, and Medrash tells us Megura Yaviv comes from the word Gael. A Gael is somebody who is distant, who has to become near, and we have to reach out and bring him near. That's what it really says in the Rishonim. The Rabbi Yaina says that. In the Torah it says, you shall love the Gael, the one who has converted to Judaism. But Gael doesn't actually mean a guy who becomes a Jew. Anyone who is distant and he becomes near is a Gael. In fact, somebody, Rabbi Yaina Paskins in Shari Tshuva, that a stranger who comes from a distant land, a distant city, who doesn't know his way around, he's called a Gael. And there's a special mitzvah of vayeshev a Gael, of loving him, of reaching out to him, of helping him out in becoming absorbed into and assimilated into the community, that he shouldn't feel anymore that he's a stranger. That's the mitzvah of vayeshev a Gael. And the Gael Eisenu, do not abuse the Gael, but do not make him feel uncomfortable. There's a special aveir, a special leisas, not to do anything that would irritate the Gael. The Gael Eisenu, don't make him any tza'al, don't make him any discomfort. So anyone who physically is distant because he comes geographically from a distant place, and there is a mitzvah to stretch your hand out and bring him near, bring him close. So certainly, whoever has his neshama distant, of course it's a big mitzvah to bring him close. So that's the mitzvah of helping out. That's the mitzvah of helping out the Gael. So, vayeshev Yankov, v'yaretz Megura Yaviv, v'yaretz Canaan. Yankov lived in the land, and as we are going to translate it the way they translate for the children in Chaydo, Yankov lived in the land of Megura Yaviv, where his father lived. The Eretz Canaan, in Canaan, and the Medrash tells us, Avraham Avinu was Megaya Geirim. As a nefesh asher asu b'charan, Avraham Avinu stretched his hand out, and he reached out to the Gael, to the one who was distant, and he made him feel close. He brought him close to Hashem. As a nefesh asher asu b'charan, this is, I think, a pasuk which is understood. You probably already heard this, that Avraham Avinu was Megaya Geirim, as a nefesh asher asu b'charan. He has made the nefashos, he has made souls in Charan. How do you make a soul? By bringing him near to the service of Hashem, bringing him near to belief in Hashem, and becoming a servant to Hashem. Yankov was Megaya Geirim. We had it in vayeshev last week. It said, discard all the idols that is between you, Yankov said to the newcomers from Shechem, and worship only Hashem. So Yankov was Megaya Geirim. So Avram was Megaya Geirim, and Yankov was Megaya Geirim, but Yitzchak Leishmanu. We didn't hear that Yitzchak was Megaya Geirim. But Yitzchak was Megaya Geirim, because it says, vayeshev Yankov v'yeretz megurei adis. Yankov lived in the land where his father was Megaya Geirim, the Eretz Canaan. So this Medrash, of course, calls for explanation. Now, we don't find out that Yitzchak is Megaya Geirim except through this pasuk, which is not in this place, and it's already after the Ptira, after the passing away of Yitzchak. So by Yankov Avinu, it tells us that his father Yitzchak was Megaya Geirim. Beretz Megurei Adis. Besides, how do you know that Megurei Adis means his father was Megaya Geirim? As I mentioned before, the Rebbe in Chayda, in the school, will say Beretz Megurei Adis means where his father lived. And like it says, by Yagasham, he lived there. So how do you know that Megurei comes from the word Geya? Maybe it means by Yaga, he lived there. Megurei Adis, he lived in the land of Canaan. And perhaps there's a third possible definition to the word Megurei. Megurei means fear. Magayam Isadir, there's a pasuk. I fear from around. You have it in Balak. Vayaga Mayav, Mefnaya Mayav was afraid. They feared the Jewish people. Kiruv, because he was great. So, Megurei can mean fear. And if Megurei would mean fear, I would explain it this way. Each of the Avos left over a heritage for us. Avram Avinu, his main avoda, his main way of serving Hashem was with midat and chesed, with love, with dedication, affection, outpouring feeling to Hashem. Now, that was Avram Avinu's way of serving Hashem. Emotion. Yitzchak was the opposite. He was fear of Hashem, fear of the great, also the glory of Hashem. It made him full of awe. He was afraid of Hashem. Not that Hashem is going to punish him. That's not called real fear. That's a very inferior type of fear of Hashem, but rather respect. Like when a very great person, supposing, let's say President Reagan would walk into this room, everybody would sit up erect, and, you become solemn, the president. It's more so if, in the monarchies when a king would come in, because he is great, because he is powerful, because he is sublime. Yitzchak was overtaken with the feeling of the greatness of Hashem that made him recoil in fear of Hashem. That was Yitzchak's midah. Yitzchak is called midas hadin, symptom, withdrawal, recoiling, because Avraham Avinu was just the opposite. Love, emotion, affection is outreaching. Fear is recoiling and withdrawing. Now, there are two ways of serving Hashem: with love, with an outpour of emotion, like when we sing Mirais, and we reach out, we're running towards Hashem. And Midas Hadin, the Eisen, the manner in which Yitzchak worshipped Hashem, was the opposite. With Meira, fear, he recoiled, realizing the greatness. What is he, a small, tiny creature, compared with the great Adon Olam, the great Lord and Creator of the universe, and much more than that? So that makes a person who really thinks about this it makes them recoil from the fear and the realization of the greatness of Hashem as compared to his smallness, to his tininess. So that was Pachad Yitzchak we have in the Seder of vayeshev. Yaakov referred to his father as worshipping Hashem with Pachad, with fear. And that was really Yitzchak Avinu's Nida, with which he worshipped Hashem. And, we have certain times in the year when each of these Nidas come to expression, like Pesach, the Yom Tov of love, Chesed, and on Pesach we say Shir Hashirim, a song of love, which Shlomo Melech made, comparing the relation of Hashem to Klal Yisrael as with a chassan to a kallah. That's Pesach. Rosh Hashanah is the opposite. Rosh Hashanah is one of fear. And as we spoke about it before, Rosh Hashanah, not really fear of punishment, but rather fear because of the realization of the greatness of Hashem, that he is the Melech. And we shout HaMelech out of fear, the great king that generates awe and glory and makes us like hide because of in humiliation and humility because of the splendor of Hashem. So this was Yitzchak's Nida, and therefore he was Pachad Yitzchak. After this explanation, I have a new way of saying Pshat in this pasuk. Vayeshev Yaakov v'yeretz migur vayavim. Yaakov lived in a land where his father worshipped Hashem with fear. V'yeretz Kna'an. So how does the Medrash know that Megura means it was Megaya Geyayim? He made Geyayim. Now we find that the Gemara tells us a story in the Pasuk Shabbos that a Geya came to Hillel and a candidate in Geya, that is, he wanted to become a Geya. And he said, Geya, bring me into the Jewish nation on the condition that you shall teach me the Torah when I stand on one leg. I won't go into the explanation of that, what he meant by one leg. But it was a tall order for Hillel. He came to Shammai first. He came to Shammai, and he wanted that Shammai should be Megayah while standing on one leg. Whatever that means. Shammai, who probably was an architect, took the ruler that he used for his constructive work, the Amasabinyan, and he just drove him out of the house. He just pushed him out of the house. Get out of here. I don't need you. So this guy went to Hillel. Hillel accepted him. Hillel was warm to him. Hillel understood him. And Hillel taught him how to become close to Hashem. Then there was a repetition of this episode. A Geya came to Shammai and said, I want to become a Geya, but when I do become a Geya, I want to work my way up until I become a Kohen Gadol, the high priest in the Beis HaMikdash. So Shammai, of course, can't accept a Geya on these conditions because you have to be a Kohen to become a Kohen Gadol in the Beis HaMikdash. A Geya can never become a Kohen Gadol. So he just took this Amos Abinyan, his ruler, and just pushed him out of the house. Get lost. I don't need you. So he went to Hillel. And Hillel was Mekared him. Hillel was warm to him. He accepted him. And little by little he explained to him that you don't have to become a Kohen Gadol. Become a Talmid Chacham. Become a real Elach Hayit who learns Torah, and you're even bigger than the Kohen Gadol. And that's how Hillel made Torah and Judaism appetizing for this guy, in his manner, in his outreaching manner, and he became a real observant Jew. So we see that Shammai rejected Geirah. He repelled them, and Hillel accepted them. He attracted them. The Zohar tells us that there are different channels from where people take their Torah. Hillel was from Midas HaChesed, and he comes from the channel of Abraham Avinu. Shammai, the repeller, was from Midas Hadin, and his Torah came through the channel of Yitzchak Avinu. That's what the Zohar says. Therefore, you're going to find in learning Gemara that whenever there is a machlokes, there's an argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in the halacha. Hillel tends usually to be the makel. He's the lenient one, and Shammai is the strict one. He's the machmir, because Hillel is from Midas HaChesed and Shammai is from Midas Hadin. Just like, but the Torah, they both derive from the same source, from Sinai, except that everyone accepts his neshama according to the type of a receptacle that his neshama is. Now, if you would pour water into a white glass, the water would appear white. If you would pour water into a tinted red glass, the water will appear red. But it's the same water. Hillel, his Torah was white, Midas HaChesed. Shammai, his Torah was red, Midas Hadin. So, knowing that, I would assume that actually Yitzchak never was actively instrumental in being Negaya Geirim and bringing Geirim into the Jewish flock. What Yitzchak did was he was closed up in his room, he learned Torah, he davened, he said Tehillim, whatever form of Avodas Hashem he did at that time, whatever form of Avodas Hashem Hillel Yitzchak employed in becoming near to Hashem was one of yira, of recoiling, of withdrawal, of being enclosed in his Daled Amis, in his own room. That was Yitzchak. Now, when somebody is closed up in his quarters, and he learns Torah, and he does it, and he is medabek himself, he attaches himself with the Shechina, he isn't Megaya Geirim, he is Megaya Geirim. Because Kedusha, which somebody draws down upon himself, Shechina, that somebody makes himself a suitable and fitting chariot, that he shall become the Merkava, the chariot for the Shechina, as we spoke about last time, that brings down Kedusha. And that Kedusha pours over, and it spreads, and it has its effects in his sphere of influence. Every person has a sphere of influence, depending upon the greatness and the dynamics of his neshama. Some people, when they do something, their effect is felt upon their family. Some people are so dynamic that the entire city where they live is affected by their kedusha, and some even more than that. But that's what it says in Sfarim, that in the city of the tzaddik, the the kedusha of the tzaddik is felt in that city. Like we find in Parshas Vayetze, when Yankov went out of vayeshev, so Vayetze Yankov in vayeshev, Rashi says, Yitzia tzaddik min hamakom ha'isaroshem. The exit of a tzaddik from a certain place leaves over a certain mark. You can tell that in the place where he was, the city where he lived, and he has just left that city, so the Haida, the Ziva, the Hadara, the splendor of the city also left with him. A tzaddik's influence is felt in his community in the entire city. So when Yitzchak is closed up in his quarters and he learns Torah and he's Aved Hashem and he worships Hashem in his manner of withdrawal, so he actually generates Kedusha. He brings down holiness to the benefit of everybody in his community. And people are going to have a hero tshuva. People where Yitzchak lives are going to have a hero tshuva. They're going to get thoughts of tshuva just because Yitzchak generates these thoughts. And these thoughts are transferred through the waves of the atmosphere into the hearts of those who are naturally picking up these thoughts of tshuva. They're predisposed for this. So the Yitzchak not actively being Isaac, not actively reaching out to the Balei Tshuva like his father Avraham Avinu did, nevertheless, he provided enough kedusha, that enough holiness in his city, in Hebron or Beersheba, wherever he lives, that the people there shall become better and become near to God. So, so there are two ways of making Balei Tshuva. There are two ways of influencing people to come to the right path. Either by actively going out, preaching, talking, lecturing, and bringing them into your home and teaching them and stimulating them to become about tshuva. Or you can do it by remote control. You can sit in your house and learn Torah, say Tehillim, daven, the Isaac and the Vaykas Hashem, and attachment to Hashem, work upon your midas, upon your character, to perfect it more and more and more, and thereby generating waves of tshuva which emanate into the outside. And people do tshuva without realizing what the source of their stimulation was. That's what Yitzchak did. And this is exactly what this pasuk is telling us. And this pasuk is employing all the possible translations of the word nigurei to explain us how Yitzchak made Balei Tshuva. Now, Yitzchak, like Shammai, repelled and he rejected Balei Tshuva. He didn't have any time, any patience for them. He was too busy with Avdus Hashem. And he was closed up in his quarters. Vayeshev Yitzchak and Vayeshev Yankov Yeretz Nigurei Avos. Yankov lived in the land where his father lived. And by the mere, from the word Vayod Hashem, living there, by the mere living there, he made Geirim, which is the second translation of Nigurei. But why did he do it in this fashion? Why didn't he do it the way Avraham Avinu did, by going out and reaching out to them actively? So the answer is Migura Yagod. He was Magar. He was Midas HaPachad. That was not his way. That was not his manner of Avdas Hashem. He was closed up in the house, and that's how he did it. Everybody worships Hashem according to the uniqueness of his own neshama. And you can't say, well, he is a good man. He goes out and reaches out to people, to Jews, and brings them back to the flock. And that fellow is selfish, and he learns all by himself. No, they're both doing the exact same thing, except that one does it Avraham Avinu's way, and one does it Yitzchak's way, Yitzchak Avinu's way. However, there's a difference between these two methods. When Avraham Avinu goes out and he's Megaya Geiram, everybody sees it. It's common knowledge. He goes out and he gets up on the soapbox and delivers a lecture, and everybody comes flocking around. And Vayikra Shem Avram b'Shem Hashem. Avram calls out in the name of Hashem, and as the Rishonim say Pshat, he preached that there is one God. Discard, throw away your idols, throw away your stupid gods, and worship one God, the creator of heaven and earth. And that's how Avraham Avinu went around lecturing, and he got into trouble with Nimrod because of that. It was very apparent, it was very evident that he was Megaya Geirim. When Yitzchak was Megaya Geirim, it wasn't evident at all. Somebody was in the market, and he became involved in certain thoughts, and he wanted to do an Aveda, and all of a sudden, something rang a bell within his heart. You can't do an Aveda. Aren't you afraid of one girl who dislikes your conduct, who doesn't approve of what you intend to do now? And he withdrew. He didn't do the Aveda. He didn't know what hit him. Why did he get this thought, which all of a sudden entered his mind, one of tshuva, one of returning to Hashem? He didn't know that somebody in the control center, in a room, in a hidden room, in a remote room, in Yitzchak's quarters, Yitzchak was davening and saying to him, and that's why this person in the marketplace picked up through his, shall I say, radio sets in his heart, he picked up the hero tshuva. He didn't know where it came from. It wasn't evident that Yitzchak was Megaya Geirim. The rule is that the Torah, which tells us what's going on in the world, the Torah, which is the blueprint for the world, just like in the blueprint of the architect, whatever is going to be in the building you see in his print, the same thing, whatever is happening in the world, in the same way you see it in the Torah. So, Avraham Avinu was very evidently being Megaya Geirim. There was no question about it. So, the Torah tells us the Torah. The Torah tells us outright, it's Nefesh Asher Asu B'Char, and the same thing with Yankov. Yitzchak, who in a concealed way, who in a hidden way was Megaya Geirim, the Torah also tells us this to us in a hidden way, in a concealed way. By just making an innocent little pasuk, the Eretz Negurei Aviv, and since Negurei has 3 possible translations, and I don't know which one to use, so I understand, like the Medrash did, that you have to use all the 3 of them. And each one is an explanation to the other 2. That Negurei Aviv means it was Megaya Geirim. How was he Megaya Geirim? Because of his influence upon the city, even though he wasn't closed up in his room. Megurei, because he lived there, with living there, with the mere living there. He was Megaya Geirim. Why didn't he do it Avraham Avinu's way? Because Megurei, he was Midas HaPachad. He was the recoiling type. He was the withdrawing type. That's why he was Megaya Geirim. But you don't see it on the surface. You have to think deep into it, and if the Medrash wouldn't hint it to us, we wouldn't even be aware of it. Because Yitzchak was Megaya Geizem in a hidden way, and therefore the Torah tells it us in a hidden way. It isn't apparent. Now, the klal is, the general rule is, we always have something in this world to explain us deeper and more abstract nuances, which we wouldn't understand without a moshe, without something to refer to, which is more physical and explains things to us. Like I mentioned before, that just the existence of a chassan and a kallah in our world is a mashal to the relation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Knesset Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the chassan, and the Knesset Yisrael is the kallah, and that's what Shir HaShirim is all about. The same thing. Neir Hashem Nishmas Adam, the Pasuk says. Neir Hashem, a candle of Hashem, Nishmas Adam, is a neshama of a person. A person has a neshama. No one with the five senses that we are equipped with to understand our physical environment, no one with these five senses ever saw a neshama. And so what is a neshama? What is something which can give us some insight on, we should have a little glimpse in our mind of something that a neshama is like. So there is something in this world which resembles and is symbolic, and it's more than symbolic. It really is related with a neshama, and that is a candle. We light candles. Hashem also has candles. Our candle is our candle, the one we buy in the store. Hashem's candle is the neshama. Neir Hashem Nishmas Adam, Shvayna Adam says. And the God's candle is the neshama of a person. So therefore, if we would want to get some understanding upon the behavior of the neshama, we could get that understanding by observing the behavior of a candle. And a candle, firstly, has a fire, which is the neshama, and that candle always gravitates to the above, not to the below. There is this law of gravity. Actually, gravity means that everything is attracted like a magnet to its source. Being that this world has the four elements, the four main elements with which it was, the components with which this world was created. As the Sefer Yetzirah, the Sefer of Avraham Avinu, calls these four main components, which are the ingredients of everything in this world. So they are Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Asa. Fire, wind, Ruach, gas, Mayim, water, Asa, earth. These are the four Yesodai, the four main elements from which the world was created. And the scientists will refer to these four as liquid, gas, solid, and energy. vayeshev, mayim, and moshe. So, everything which is coarse, which is more earthly, which is more physical, contains more of this element of also, of earth. And therefore, it tends to gravitate to its source, to the core of the earth, which is the also, so it falls downwards. Fire, which is energy, doesn't contain this yeseda also in itself. Pure fire will always drive its way upward. When the candle is burning, the flame won't droop down to the floor. It'll point to the ceiling. It wants to go upward. To the yesod hayarayach. The source of fire is in the Shechina Hagdosha, which is called Yarayach. And therefore fire will always point and drive and have a drive to go upward. And it would fly upward if not for the fact that it needs to be fueled, and it's being held down by the more physical and coarse fuel, which provides the existence of that fire, and which keeps it down to earth. So of this fire, this nail, this flame, it is a flame which, in order to stay down upon earth and not dash upwards to the source of fire, it needs three things. It needs something to hold on to, something to feed it, and something to be contained within. And these are the three parts of the candle. The receptacle in which we pour the oil, or the candlestick perhaps, in which we put the hardened oil in. Then we need the oil alone, which feeds the flame. And then we need the wick to hold, that the flame should hold on to it. This is a nefesh. These three halakim, these three parts of that keep the flame, these three parts of the candle which keep the flame down and keep it burning, are called in Lashon HaKodesh nail. Nail is the receptacle, the vessel. Tila, that's the wick, and shemen. Nail, tila, shemen is Rashi Tevis nefesh. This is nun peishem. This is the nefesh work. Neya starts with a nun, Tefillah starts with a pei, and Shema starts with a shem. Because Neya Hashem Nishma Satan. The Neshama is a flame. The Neshama is heavenly fire. What keeps this Neshama down? Why doesn't it burst out and with gravitation and fling itself into the lap of Hashem, to its source, to the place where all the Neshamas were spewed from, to the Kisi HaTavit? They're kept down by this guf, which is the Nefesh HaBahami, but which feeds the Neshama and gives existence to the Neshama in this earthly atmosphere. This is the Nefesh. That's you asking, isn't it the other way around, that the Neshama feeds the guf? That's true. The Neshama feeds the guf with life, with heavenly life, and the guf feeds the neshama with earthly existence. It goes so. It's a choice. So, if not for the neshama, the guf would just fall down dead. And if not for the guf, the neshama would have no business being here altogether. There's nothing here to have it chained down. The guf keeps the neshama chained down here. So, and it feeds it through physical ways, like the Rama explains the bracha vayeshev that one of the ploys, one of the wonders, the miracles of Hashem is that there is a bond between guf and the neshama. The neshama is bound to the guf, to the body, and even though one is physical and one is spiritual, but still with food, with physical food, we keep them bound together. And if a person won't eat food, then the will dry up, and the neshama would just fly upwards and just say goodbye to the guf and have no business with it anymore. So now Hashem Nishmat says, the behavior of a candle will give us insight into the behavior and into the very essence and into the very essence of the neshama. So there is a special day in the week which is Neshama Day, and that's Shabbos. Shabbos, the day HaKadosh calls Yom HaNeshama, the day of the Neshama. Shabbos, a person doesn't indulge in gashmias, in earthliness, in the physical. He rises on Shabbos. On Shabbos, a person becomes a neshama person, and he doesn't work for a living, and the day is spent in Torah and in tefillah and in oneg, in pleasure, spiritual pleasure, pleasure, a Shabbos-like pleasure. Yom menucha u'kedusha li'amcha nesata. There isn't anything, a guy can't understand Shabbos. There's no such thing like a substitute, like that the game substituted Sunday to allow the Shabbos. They don't know what Shabbos is. Shabbos is a spiritual day. It's a day of a neshama. Yom menucha u'kedusha li'amcha nesata. It's menucha wedded to kedusha, and therefore this is Shabbos. So on Shabbos, which is the day of the neshama, the Shabbos is heralded in by the lighting of the candles of Shabbos. The moment the woman lights candles, it becomes Shabbos. Because what is Shabbos? It's the day of the neshama. So we have something on our table which is the picture of the neshama, the candle. And well, that's very nice for those who are fortunate enough to enjoy the gleam and the warmth of the Shabbos neiros, of the Shabbos candles on the Shabbos table. And that Shabbos candle makes them feel closer to Hashem because consciously or subconsciously it like beckons to the person, rise higher. Come with me. I am fire. You are also fire. Let's join. Let's rise. Let's not be down to earth like the other 6 days of the week. It's Shabbos today. On Shabbos, the Yobina Shloim's Titi Akavi, the heavenly throne, is elevated. Let's be elevated alongside with it. That's Shabbos. But not everybody is conditioned for that. Some people, unfortunately many people, whose activity during the week didn't warrant that they should enjoy the Shabbos, it didn't prepare them for the Shabbos. So when Shabbos comes, it's the opposite. They can't stand the Shabbos. like a bat can't stand light. They just can't appreciate the Shabbos. It's too bright for them. It's too holy for them. And Shabbos to them is perhaps the worst day in the week. They're not prepared for the Shabbos. For the sake of those listening on the tape, so I don't want to interrupt. Now you're going to ask later. And so for such people who need a lift, and Shabbos can't give them that lift because they are not prepared for it. They are not geared to the Shabbos, and their station isn't tuned into the Shabbos. For such people, there is a Hanukkah, enveloped in darkness, in chayshech, and they were delivered from that chayshech, from this darkness. They were zeiche. They then were fortunate to get the mitzvah of Ner Hanukkah, the Hanukkah candle. The Medrash tells us that at the very onset of existence, at creation, there already Klal Yisrael was already predestined to go through four galiyos, four types of being distanced from Hashem. The other places say who the world was barren, and empty, dark, how do you translate Sahim? And they have this, the death. So the mother says these four terms, Sayu, Vayu, Chayshech, and Tahaim, are symbolizing the four galiyos, the four exiles. Sayu Zu, Bavel, Bavayhu Zu, Madai, Yavan Ze Chayshech, Utahaim Ze Even. These four types of galus are all be sung in Ma'is Tzur. There was Mitzrayim, of course, which is the root, and then came the four galiyos. So in the second chapter of Ma'is Tzur, we sing about Mitzrayim and how we were delivered from Mitzrayim, and afterwards Bavel, and afterwards Madai, that's the Marchai and Esther, and then Yavana Nikbetsu Alai Azai B'mei Cheshmanas, then Yavan. And then a prayer in the last stanza that we shall be delivered from Edaim, the galus in which we find ourselves today. So Yavan is Chayshech, darkness, in the depths. And when maybe at another occasion we'll try to understand more deeply why Yavan is referred to as Chayshech. However, it was Chayshech. And if you would rearrange the Aisius of Chayshech, you would find the word Shakayach, to forget. Because that was the purpose and that was the device of Yavan, Lashkicham Tayosecha, to make Jews forget the Torah, to make them estranged from the Torah. Chayshech, darkness. And therefore, Shikha, forgettingness, forgetfulness. The word Shikha is the Gematria Neo Chanukah. Because that's the Chanukah is the antidote, and it's the light of Chanukah is the deliverance from this chayshech or ha-chayshech, which is the isis of shikha. So we find a very interesting explanation of a piece of Gemara in almost all the Sfarim, starting from the Ma'er Einayim, all the Sfarim of the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov. They all say one thing. The Gemara says, Psileis Rishmanim she'ein madalikim b'hem b'Shabbos, madalikim b'hem b'Chanukah. Wicks and oils that you're not allowed to use them on Shabbos because these oils and these wicks don't properly make a candle burn well, because the oil isn't nimshach acher apsila, the oil doesn't readily absorb itself into the wick, and the wick isn't of an absorbent material to be saturated with the oil, and therefore the fire jumps on and off and it sometimes goes out with these wicks and oils. These oils and wicks, and the Mishnah tells us which they are, that we're not allowed to use on Shabbos, but on Hanukkah we could use them. So the Sfarim explain that these oils and wicks are referring to neshamas, like we said before, nefesh, nefsil Hashem. There are certain neshamas that even Shabbos won't light them. They won't take fire on Shabbos because they're too coarse. They're not the proper material. They're not properly conditioned and equipped to be mikabel, to accept the light of Shabbos. But Hanukkah, that light they could take. What is the difference between the Shabbos candle and the Hanukkah candle? In other words, what is the difference between the neshama that could enjoy the Shabbos, that could fuse in and become one with the Shabbos, rather the Shabbos, rather the Yechad? Which is the neshama that could unite itself with the Shabbos? And which is the neshama that can't unite itself with the Shabbos? However, it could benefit from the Chanukah. That is a neshama which is on the outside. It cannot yet be accepted into the community of the Shabbos enjoyers, into the community of those who enjoy the Shabbos together with the Shechina G'dayisha, into the community of Avram Yagel, Yitzchak Yeranim, Yankov Uvanav, Yenuch Uvay. And they do not feel, they do not experience this menuchas ahava unadava, this shalom v'shal v'hashket v'vetach, this menucha shleima, this wonderful experience of joy and delight which Shabbos should give to the wholesome neshamas. These neshamas are on the outside. These neshamas are in the dark. They are neshamas like all the neshamas. They contain oil, they contain wicks, they are in a vessel, they're in a receptacle, in a nail. But there's one thing about them. They're extinguished, blown out. There's no flame there. Nothing burns there. These are the Hanukkah neshamas. The Hanukkah neshama finds itself in a certain setting which is unique to the Hanukkah neshama. Now, we speak of Kedusha as opposed to Tumah. We speak of Kedoshim as opposed to Tmeihim. We speak as Zaydim as opposed to Eiskei Teirasecha. as tzaddikim against Rishonim. What is the difference? We just finished vayeshev, and still we're not complete with these explanations and the formation of the exact character of what the Kaddish is and who the Tama is. But we already have a name for them. There is Yankov and Esav. There is Esav and there's Yankov. Yankov belongs to the Rishus HaYachid. Yankov belongs to the Rabban Yisrael, who was one, and therefore he belongs to Shabbos. Yankov Avinu is the first one who kept Shabbos. As the Gemara tells us, and last week said that this is the Gemara in Chulin, that he was the first one to make laws of Shabbos, the dinim of Tchumen. Yankov kept the Shabbos. Esav, of course, has no shaykhs with the Shabbos. Because when Yankov's 70 souls, which came down to Mitzrayim, are mentioned in the Torah calls them Shivim Nefesh, 70 souls. 70 souls, Lashon Yachid, in the singular tense. Yachid. However, by Esav in last week says, we have Nafshes based, Nefashos, souls, plural. Yankov is singular, and Esav is plural. Because that's the difference between Yankov and Esav. Yankov belongs to Shabbos, to the Rishus HaYachid, which is Raza the Echad. The secret of Shabbos is the secret of unity, of oneness of the Rabbeinu Shalom. And Esav belongs to the Rishus HaRabim, and to the street. And therefore, you're not allowed to carry out from the Rishus HaYachid into the Rishus HaRabim, from the enclosed quarters into the street on Shabbos, because that would be symbolic of us going out of the Rishus, of the domains of Hashem, and going into the domains of Esav, into the Rishus HaRabim, which is many gods, plural. Yankov is Yachid and Esav is Rabim, single and plural. Yankov is light and Esav is dark, Vayeshev. That doesn't require any further explanation. Yankov is right and Esav is left, Yemin and Smile. In fact, Smile is the name of the sun. Samach Mem Aleph Lamed, except that a sin and a samach interchange. That's the left side. You still, when a Kohen does the Avodah and Beis HaMikdash, he must do it with his right hand, which is the hand of Kedusha, not the left hand. We do mitzvahs with our right hand, not with the left hand. That's one of the klalim, one of the halachas with which we must be mekayim a mitzvah. If we're mekayim a mitzvah, we can only use one hand. We use the right hand and not the left hand. And we always give preference to the right side. We put on our right sleeve first. We put on our right shoe first. And if you will notice, the right strap of your tefillin is longer than the left side, because we give more preference and to the right, which is Yemin, over Smile, over the left side. So Yankov is Yemin and Esav is Smile. So you will find that when it comes to Hanukkah, Hanukkah comes out in the season of the year when it's real dark. The longest nights in the year. Tkufat Taives, Leilei Taives Aruchim, the long nights of Taives. Because, and that's when all the Gayish holidays come. You know, maybe we'll talk about it more when the season arrives. This usually, most of the time, Hanukkah coincides with I don't want to say the name when the Chumash here is open, with the vayeshev holiday. This year it doesn't. This year it's quite a little off. Because it's Ibor, it's the Shana Miyuberes. It's a year of 13 months, so we're almost a month behind. We're about 3/4 of a month behind until we're going to catch up when the extra Chodesh Adar will line up the lunar year with the solar year. But a while we're sort of dragging behind. So both of these things are on one mishkal, they balance each out and they correspond to each other, the Kedusha versus the Tumah. So it's the darkest time of the year that in the Leilei Teirei Saruchim, when the nights are the longest and the days are the shortest, it is in the Rosh Hashanah, in the streets that we put on our Hanukkah candle. In the times of the Gemara, the Hanukkah candle was lit on the outside of the house in the street, in the Rosh Hashanah, Daske in the Rosh Hashanah. And in Yerushalayim, many still do it today, because this minig, this custom that we don't put on the Hanukkah, that we don't light the Hanukkah candle in the streets, but rather indoors, came because of the Goddess, because we couldn't do it because of the Goyim. However, in Yerushalayim, they do it. Today we are like a Shata Sakana, the Gemara says, we can't light Hanukkah candles outdoors. So we light it indoors. But really, the Gemara says you're supposed to light it the Pesach, the Chutz, on the outside, in the Rosh Hashanah. So we light it in the dark, and we light it in the Rosh Hashanah, which is the territory of Esav. And we light it on the left side of the door, Smoil, which is again the territory of Esav. On the right side we have the mezuzah, and on the left side we put the Hanukkah candle. And another thing, we light it below 10 tefachim. The Gemara says in Suk and in other places, the Shechina never descended lower than 10 tefachim, 10 fists. No, the size of a fist. That's about 4 inches. The Shechina Gedaisha, God's presence never went down below to below 10 tefachim above earth, and therefore many mitzvahs derive this halacha that from the very fact that the Shechina never descends so low. A sukkah must be 10 tefachim high, otherwise it's possible. And the Gemara learns that from the Yaran HaKadosh, where the Shechina Gedaisha talked to Moshe Rabbeinu from above 10 tefachim. So the Adati Shamayala Kapayras and the Yaran HaKadosh plus the Kapayras were 10 tefachim high. So the sukkah must be 10 tefachim high because the Shechina is on the schach, it dwells on the schach. Another such mitzvah. But the Hanukkah candle is the only exception where we are medactic, if possible, to have it lower than 10 tefachim, which is about, we have it lower than 40 inches from the ground. So, which is again the Rosh Hashanah, because the Rosh Hashanah is 10 tefachim high. That's what the Gemara tells us in Shabbos. And in order to separate the Rosh Hashanah from the Rosh Hashanah, we must have a mechitza. We must have a fence which is 10 tefachim high. But the Rosh Hashanah is lower than 10 tefachim. So again, the Hanukkah is put lower than 10 tefachim in the domains of Esav. What does that mean? That means that Jew who cannot raise himself to the light of Shabbos, then we have it in the reverse. that Jew that can't raise himself, that can't lift himself to go to the Shekhinah, to go to God on Shabbos, and he should be heavenly bound, for this Jew, the Shekhinah, God's presence comes down to him to earth, into the darkest part of the night, on the left side, under Tanshachim. And there, his candle is lit. That means lighting a candle. And therefore, Hanukkah is a weekday Yom Tov. It's even less than Purim. On Purim, which is a weekday Yom Tov, but so at least we wear Shabbat clothing. And Hanukkah, we don't even wear Shabbat clothing. It's something which pertains to Chayil, to the opposite of Kedusha, to mundaneness, to something which is weekday-like, which isn't Shabbatic. That is the secret of Hanukkah. This is the very essence of Hanukkah. Those neshamas that can't lift themselves to the Shabbos, that can't lift themselves to the Kadosh Baruch Hu, who is called Shabbos, then the Shabbos comes down to them. And like, a sick person, so there's a mitzvah, Dikah Chayil, and you have to go and visit a sick person. So the Gemara says that even a king should go and visit a sick person. It's not beyond his dignity. It's not because you're supposed to come to the sick person. Why is the weekdays called Chayil? Chayil comes from the word sick, Chayil. Because, like Shlomo Melech says in Shir Hashirim, that Chayil Asahava Ani, in the Golus I'm sick. And the weekdays, the 6 weekdays, are symbolic of the Golus. And Shabbos is symbolic of Yerushalayim. Apayros Yerushalayim Aleinu, Balcha Ba'ama Yisrael Yerushalayim, Mishamru B'nai Yisrael Shabbos. Shabbos is Yerushalayim. It's, in fact, Chutz La'aretz, Rosh Tevis Chayil, as opposed to Eretz Yisrael, which is Kodesh. So Hanukkah, the Kisei HaKavod comes down to us, and this is what Hanukkah is all about. That Hanukkah comes down to the low people, to the wretched people, to those neshamas who are prostrate on the ground and can't lift themselves to the Kedusha of Shabbos. Those psilei sushmanim that ein madalikim bem b'Shabbos, those oils and wicks, those neshamas that don't take fire on Shabbos, madalikim bem b'Chanukah. Chanukah is the time when the Shekhinah descends to them and it lights them in where they are, so that they may also be lit up and come right into the Shabbos and become Shabbatic candles and transform themselves from Hanukkah into Shabbos. And that's why in Shabbos Hanukkah, first we light the Hanukkah candle, and then we light the Shabbos candle. And as if the Hanukkah candle, becomes incorporated into the Shabbos candle. It's already had its ali. It already has been raised to that madrayga. So actually, what is Hanukkah? Hanukkah is Megayer Geirim. Hanukkah reaches out to the Geirim, to those who are distant, to those who are in the territory, in the realm of Goyishhood, of the Sitra Achra, of the Tumah, those who are in captivity by Esav. So Hanukkah is Megaya Geirim, it brings them to Jewishness. And vayeshev, which is the Shabbos, which always heralds into Hanukkah. So the first pasuk in vayeshev is that Yitzchak, the Midas Hadin, the left side, he is also Megaya Geirim. For those who are on the left side, for the Hanukkah lamp, which is on the left side. And it isn't apparent. It's not Shabbos. You don't put on your Shabbos clothing. You don't put on the Shabbos tablecloth, and you don't put the candles on the table, and you don't eat gefilte fish, and whatever you do on Shabbos, and you don't sing in Menucha v'Simcha, and you don't recite Nishma. But it's Chanukah. It's Megaya Geya. It reaches out to those in the dark, to those on the left side, to those that are under 10 Tzachim, to those that are in the Leilei Tevei Saruchim, the long nights of Tevei. And this is something very special. The Shekhinah never goes down the Matamei Asara. The Shekhinah never goes down under 10 Tzachim. But on Chanukah it does. Chanukah is the exception. Because Chanukah we're sick. And the Shekhinah comes to be Mavaka Chayim, to visit the sick. And Yosef is the symbol of Chanukah. Yosef is Meisef V'Hayelech. He adds, Yosef Hashem Aleichem. Yosef is the one that added another Shevet to himself. Like, that's Chanukah. Every night we add something which wasn't there before. Every Shevet is one Shevet, and that's it. But Yosef isn't content with remaining one Shevet. He must grow in Kedusha. He adds another Shevet, Yosef. Yosef means addition, addition. And Yosef's dream was that he shall bring Chanukah to the world. Yosef, in this week's Sedra, we have Yosef Hurat Mitzrayim. Yosef was lowered to Mitzrayim. Yosef went down under 10 Tzachim to go to the most Talmudic spot in the world, Mitzrayim, which is called Ervat Ha'aretz. It's called the shame of the land. You know, each part of the globe, each part in geography is a certain part of the human anatomy. We have Ein Ha'aretz, the eye of the land, Zrayis Oyelam, the arms. We have Knaf Ha'aretz. You know, all the parts, very many, we find in Tanakh, many parts of the anatomy of a person are referred to as parts of the geography. And Yerushalayim is Leiv Ha'aretz, the heart. Dabar Leiv Yerushalayim. Mitzrayim is Ervat Ha'aretz. It's the genitals of the land. It's the lowest part of the land. And Yosef went to Mitzrayim, into the lowest part, where there were two Zima, where they were just steeped in immorality, like Hasha says in the beginning of Lech Lecha, when Abraham Avinu came first to Mitzrayim. And there his Nisayan, the test of Yosef, was with immorality in his big test with the wife of Potiphar. And Yosef had to prepare the ground for the Yidden, for the Bnei Yisrael to come to Mitzrayim, and he had to prepare and bring some Kedusha into it. Why did Yosef come to Mitzrayim? To light the Chanukah menorah there, in the dark under 10 Tzachim. So therefore, in the beginning of the Sedra, Yosef has a dream, I, Yosef, I'm standing on earth, and the sun and the moon and the stars come down to earth and they kneel down to me. Just like a Yid bends over to light his Chanukah candle and he stoops down to light it when it's under 10 Tzach. So Yankov Avinu said, what are you talking about? Shemesh means God. Shemesh U'Magen Hashem, the Pasuk says in Tehillim. A God is just like the sun radiates and gives life to everything in the universe. The same thing God does. Yareach means Knesset Yisrael, the heavenly presence which resembles Knesset Yisrael in heaven. That's Yareach. Achadasa Kechavim are the 11 arrangements of the Shem Hashem that are connected to the 11 Shvatim, and Yosef was the 12th. So all these things go down to earth under 10 Tzachim. Do you say that I'm going to come down, I who resemble, who am the Merkava, who am the dwelling chariots, where God dwells upon me, and your mother, the Shechina, and the 12 Shvatim, your brothers, they are the 12 combinations of the 4-letter Shem of Hashem. So they're going to go down the Shtachaves to Niyolacha also to the ground? Could that be? But this question of Yankov was not really a question with a question mark. It was an exclamation. Yes, it's true. There will be a time when Yidden will be in Galus, when Yidden will be in the dark, and they won't have the kayach. They won't be able to muster enough strength to stand up and rise to the Shechina. Then the Shechina will condescend and go down to them. And that's what Yosef saw in his dream, that Yosef, he is the Hanukkah candle, he is the Moshe for Hayalechti, the one that keeps on adding more and more light, that he is in Mitzrayim, and Yankov and the Bilha, whatever represents Kedusha, will come down the Matamei Asava and kneel down to them. So this is the connection that the Vayeshev has with Hanukkah. It starts off with being Megaya Geirim. Hanukkah is the time of being Megaya Geirim. And when a Yid goes over to the door, which is at least the boundary of his house, if it's not on the outside, and he kneels down Lamata Me'asara, below, he stoops down below 10 tefachim, at the left side of his door, in the longest night of the year, and he brings down the Shemesh, which is referring to Hashem, which is referring to Yankov, and he lowers that Shemesh all the way down to light a Hanukkah candle. So what he's doing by remote control is what Yitzchak did in his hidden quarters. He is Megaya Geirim. He can sometimes bring light to a neshama hundreds of miles away, and that neshama will flare up and become all lit up, and nobody would ever know from where. It's hidden. It's concealed. The pasuk doesn't tell us that Megura Yaviv means that is Megaya Geirim. We don't know our own dynamics. We don't know our great power. What a Yid can do by everything that he does. When he lights his Hanukkah candle, when he lights his Shabbat candle, when he lights all the worlds, when he lights the entire universe up, he doesn't know. Just like somebody has been instructed to push a button on the bottom of the Twin Towers, without knowing that when he does that, he opens up the currents, and all these thousands of lights in the entire Twin Tower all of a sudden become illuminated because he's threw the switch or pushed the button without realizing. That's what our mitzvahs are, the switches, the buttons. We don't know what they accomplish with us. But that's a Jewish mitzvah. Unfortunately, I didn't do Hanukkah service. There's much more to talk about, but my watch says that it's time to stop here. So I really hope that you have a very nice Shabbos, a very nice Shabbos Vayeshev, a very nice Shabbos Hanukkah. And bring Kedusha with your Hanukkah lighting, bring Mashiach with your Hanukkah lighting. That's why we say that in the light of Hanukkah we have concealed the light of Mashiach. In this week of the Sabbath we have Mashiach. We have both Mashiach. There is Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. And they're both found in the Hanukkah candle. Mashiach is Rosh Hashanah's Mizgala Shmeinas Yemei Chanukah. It appears in the 8 days of Hanukkah. That's why it's number 8. We once, I think, discussed this, that Mashiach is associated with the number 8. And there are two Mashiach in the Klal Yisrael. One is Yehuda, Mashiach ben David, and one is Yosef, Mashiach ben Yosef. And both of them appear in this week's Seder in their lowest masses. By Yehuda we have was the story of Tamar. And Mashiach came out of that story. And how does the parsha begin? Vayeshev Yehuda. Yehuda descended. And immediately after that parsha, the Yosef was. And Yosef was descended. Both went down the Mata Mayasara to bring the Nair of Mashiach, the Arichas Nair of Angisha Mashiach, to light the candle of Mashiach, which is going to illuminate the entire world when the time comes that now we have a sample of it. We just have a taste of it, just like you taste before Shabbos, you taste the food of Shabbos to see if it's okay, and you have a little taste of it. So that on our Sedra, the eighth Sedra brings us into the festival of the 8 days, which has hidden in it Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef, which light 8 candles in the 8th Sedra to bring Mashiach, who's going to play on his harp of 8 strings when Mashiach will come. Any questions? A few days to think.
In other words, the Shekhinah has to come to then teach us to the darkness. When we start at the bottom to work its way up, we had to go to the shrine, that's right. And welcome.
Yeah, right.
And then getting taste what will be.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Learning in Kanye, in this text, it says on Mary Hashem Nishmas Adam that even though first we talk in the flames, it's very nice to separate from the winter and go up to its source.
Right, yeah. That is my source, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That makes it easier. The soul, like manna, wants to separate from the body and go to its source.
Yeah.
But in doing so, it becomes inverse, it becomes nothing,
and
nullifies in its source.
Right.
Even though, but still, that's its nature.
Yeah.
That's its nature that wants to do it.
Yeah.
So,
to the degree which I could explain it requires very much time. And certainly, to the degree which somebody else who knows more would be able to explain it. And you said it doesn't take a kid's test, right?
Yeah.
You need 18 Trakim and Tanya before until you come to this, right? And then I'll tell you a general answer to a question like this. A little touch, a little explanation of the pasuk for Reb Shamshon Tzol Yesh. Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem is Reishis Chachma. It's the beginning of Chachma. It's elementary. Anybody could understand it. What it means to be a Jew. What it means to feel like a Jew is Reishis Chachma. It's elementary. It's the beginning of Chachma. But Seichel Taiv L'chal Oiseihem. It makes good sense to all who practice it. In other words, if you practice Judaism, you're going to understand it. If you don't practice it, you can philosophize from today until the Aleph HaShishi, the Aleph HaShviyi, until the 7,000. It's no use. You won't understand it. Try to explain, let's say, try to explain somebody what motherhood is. You can explain this, explain that way. He'll argue, he'll bring contradictions and such. But a very primitive woman in Africa who had a baby knows what motherhood is because she experienced it. You know what I mean? There are certain things that you can't explain unless you experience them. So, therefore, if you are going to talk to an unobservant Jew and explain him all these things, he won't accept it. He'll shake it off like a duck shakes off water. It just won't. It won't stick. You know what I mean? But if a small child keeps the Torah, he wears his tzitzis and he keeps Shabbos and he very careful with what he eats and all that, he'll understand it. Tzeichel is precious chacham, it's elementary. But it's tzeichel and it makes sense to those who practice it. You tell that person he should start keeping Shabbos and eating kosher and become observant in all other areas, and he should stop philosophizing, and lo and behold, he'll understand these things without explanation. So I think I did answer you.
For a share on the topic of 2 approaches of being the kiruv people to Hashem, given Tavshim and Tes, press 1. For a share on the topic of the Netzachem of the Kedusha of Yosef in the deep Tumah of Mitzrayim, given Tavshin Samachay, press 2.